Hi, everyone. Welcome. Hi, welcome to our weekly book study, everyone. It's good to see you all. Yes, we're going live on YouTube so that we can play the replay. And it's so good to see all of you again this week. Thanks for being here. Welcome, Jenny. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Bill, and lovely to see everyone again.
And we're looking at chapter 5 in The Perfume of Silence. I know everybody knows what the book looks like, but I'll show it to you just in case you're on Kindle. This is it. And this week it's a short but very powerful half of a chapter called Don't Leave the Throne. Don't leave the throne. Stay as the king, so to speak. And it's a very powerful 3 or 4 pages. I look forward to getting into it. It will go from page 63, if you have the book, to halfway down on page 69. And Jenny, is there a particular place you would like to start, or what do you think?
Well, let's start at the beginning. The first question is interesting because although it appears to be about music, it also applies equally to meditation. So he says that the question is, you spoke of there being nothing to do, no desire for great experience. And later I was playing music with friends, and afterwards there was a profound stillness. It seemed as though the practice of attending to the beat and the rhythm brought about this stillness. I feel that not doing or not looking for anything is so intangible, especially in the light of such an experience. And that really goes to the heart of the difference between objective and subjective meditation. And Francis explains that when we focus the mind on an activity, it automatically comes into the present because that's where the activity is happening. But after a while, the objective aspect of that activity, in this case, in the case of music, it's the beat and the rhythm, that becomes boring. And so he says that which is always in the background and between the beats reveals itself as stillness, as peace. And exactly the same applies when we meditate on an object. So objective meditation, which is generally the sort of meditation that most people know, where you meditate on a mantra or the breath or a flame or a picture of your guru, any kind of object, then the situation is exactly the same. And Francis explains that in all cases, it's important to understand that the object hasn't caused the stillness. It's not because you're repeating a mantra. The mantra doesn't cause the stillness. The music doesn't cause the stillness. The flame doesn't cause the stillness. And he says that this peace is causeless. The causes is beautiful because it is entirely independent of circumstances. We can have it everywhere because we are always the same everywhere. It is natural. So it's not something that we need to do anything special to achieve. I think that's quite an important distinction.
Yes, I do too. And it's interesting. Uh, Francis is so quick, so fast to pick out the subtle distractions or the subtle uh, um, um, body mind attention versus the stillness attention. He's so fast at that. And what I found interesting about this question is that most people, when they begin to, when they think of the the stillness or quiet presence or quiet or the meditation, I've heard from many people over the years that it seems kind of boring. You know, the mind, we're so accustomed to the mind giving attention to the objects of experience, like he was describing here, the music. Was the questioner was saying, well, it was because of the music that I moved into that space. And his attention was going to the object of experience. The busyness of the mind wants to stay busy. It isn't initially, it's uncomfortable almost to the mind to be still.
Yes, and but also that we don't need to try to make it still. It's something that just happens in a perfectly natural way.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I loved Francis's answer, and this is where he, on the following page, following that discussion that you just read, on the following page, starting with the well, at the very top, he says it's important to understand the process to understand. Okay, you did read that, didn't you?
Yes,
Yeah, and then
yes,
then he moves on to talking about don't leave the throne at the bottom of that page, but he starts with stop thinking that you're a beggar. And that
yes,
was the beginning of, stay on, don't leave the throne. And he
yes,
said stop thinking you're a beggar. However, it is useless just to think I am a king. We have to understand who we are and discover that we are the king. It can't just be concepts. It needs to be a discovery. And I love where he goes with this later on, even in the feelings part of it. We'll talk about that in a minute, I think. But he says we have to understand who we are and discover that we are the king. Merely to think it is a super merely to think it is a super imposition. Be open to the possibility that you are without limit, that consciousness is infinite, beyond space and time. So, give this the power and the limitless that it is due. Don't, we go over it so quickly that we conceptualize it. And the mind goes, oh, yeah, 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 I got that. He says, if we think that consciousness is within, and by within, we mean within the mind, we shrink the experience and it vanishes. It loses its perfume of infinity. It is within in the sense that it has an intimate quality of I amness. But on the other hand, it contains everything within itself. This is what Pascal meant when he said that its center is everywhere and its circumference is nowhere. After the experience of our true nature, we shrink it by thinking that I, as a person, had the experience. That eclipses it. Don't think I had the experience, but rather I am the experience. I just thought that's just so beautifully stated, and it's precise because it really describes the tendency of the mind to grab the experience and say, I did that. That was me.
yes, yes. And Rick had a couple of questions on some of this. First of all, he says, would it be accurate to say it's impossible to really leave the throne? I think what Francis is actually saying is it's impossible not to be the king. We are the king, but leaving the throne is actually playing the beggar, and we have the freedom to do that. So that's always a possibility. So he said, ignorance is part of the freedom. Ignorance arises through the infinite freedom that consciousness has. And he also asked about, I had the experience in replacing, I had the experience with I am the experience. And he felt that both imply duality. I don't think that's what, I mean, any words imply duality. It's not possible to use a single word. Even the word I implies duality, because there's I and not I. So we can't use any words which don't imply duality. But I think what Francis is actually pointing to here, and he says, I am the experience, that there is no separation between what I am and what I experience, that there's no dividing line between the two. I am the experience. So I am the perceiver and the perceived. There's no separation between the two. I think that's really what he's saying there. So yes, as the king, we have infinite freedom.
Yes, and also in that statement, don't think I had the experience. The use of the word had is in the past also, and
Yes,
so
yes,
the reason I think that's why he was pointing to that, because I am the experience is like so direct, as opposed to the mind, which is the statement of living, is the one that lives in the past.
yes. It's a conceptualization of an experience as that is it. I've got it. I've had it,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
whereas really it can only, the understanding is only ever now. It's never in the past.
Yes. Yeah.
It never leaves you. Once that understanding is there, it never leaves you, but also you realize that it always was there.
Right. And he's not speaking of the object of experience. He is speaking of the true nature of experience.
Yes, the noumenal experience of I am. Yeah,
Right.
yes, not an objective experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And where he uses the title of this chapter is the next paragraph. He says, although, or the questioner said, although there is nobody that can do anything about the understanding, at the same time, samsara just seems to continue. So the understanding seems to be lacking. And then Francis answers and says, don't give up easily to samsara. Don't let samsara lure you into thinking that there is samsara. It is only if you think that there is samsara that there is samsara. Don't accept it. You are always the self. Don't leave the throne.
Yes, we should probably just explain what samsara is in case for those who aren't familiar with. It's a Sanskrit word,
Okay.
of course, and what it really refers to is the cycle of birth and death. So the question was really about feeling that one is not one is limited, limited in time, limited in space. Also, it's so that's what samsara is about. It has another meaning, which is the world, but that's very much bound up in the idea of the cyclic unfolding of manifestation.
Okay, cool. Well, that's good to know, and thank you for that definition, that description that goes with this. And it goes on page 65 for those of you that are following in the pages. The next question is, or questioner says, it seems to require an effort because it appears that we are pushed off the throne. In this situation, there is a delicate balance between not reacting and watching. And then Francis says, yes, but see that it is your freedom, just what you were saying. Understand that if the king wants to play beggars, the entire court is going to play along and kick the king just to please him.
Yes.
Ask and you receive.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone asked him in a recent satsang about why there is ignorance, and he said because we consciousness choose to play the game of ignorance. It's our freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing too because we don't realize that we are the genie in the lamp. Ask and you receive. Just rub the genie, ask and you get it. What you and this comes from this is out of that text, or that understanding is in the text, the book of Job, where Job said, and I think it was misunderstood what was said, but he said, the very thing that I fear has come upon me. And it's because we get exactly as we ask. We just don't realize that our asking is in what our attention goes to, and what we feel with great intensity occurs.
Yes, yes.
We
Yes.
it's like sending having an antenna that goes out to the universe and says, give me more of this vibration, give me more of this frequency that I'm transmitting, and that's what comes back.
Yes. Yes. Lindsay's asked a question on the chat. She says, I'm confused. The current book question, I think that was the first question, is about directing your attention to the now moment. And Francis seems to think it's a good thing. Well, he's not saying it's a good thing. He's just saying that that's what happens. We like playing music. And yet later on, he says to surrender all of your activities. What's left will be stillness. But that is exactly how it is. We shouldn't think that activities bring us stillness. It's the cessation of those activities in which stillness manifests. And that's how it happens initially. But later on, he defines stillness as being different from absence of silence and a complete absence of noise, or absence of activities. He defines stillness as continuing throughout activities. It's that sense of myself, that sense of the unchanging I, that's always present, the king that never leaves the throne. And that's really what it's about. And yes, activities do, they have a positive function, but the function is not to bring us to stillness. The function is just to celebrate and enjoy stillness.
Did that answer that for you, Lindsay? If it didn't, just raise your hand and you can come on and you can go deeper into it if you like. Did that satisfy your confusion? And one thing that I was, going back uh, to the statement about stillness being boring, it sort of is in the beginning until you taste it, until you taste and then the space becomes open, or the space reveals itself. I don't guess becoming open isn't really a true statement because it's always there. But once I'm able to see it, it becomes that fragrance of experience that can't hardly be described. You can't really put words to it. The stillness becomes uh, a direct experience of our I amness.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, and
it's
it's really uncovering that. It's not that it suddenly happens. It's just an uncovering of it. It's always there.
yes, yeah. And that goes with, even when you're trying to describe it, you're using concessions to even to put it to words, because it's just very subtle, and it all of a sudden it's just there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, this next paragraph on the middle of page 65, uh, the the statement was, "But the king is thinking, I wish I wasn't playing a beggar." Why do I keep doing that? To play the beggar is to identify with the body and the mind. And we all do that. I mean, that's the human condition. The identification with the body mind creates the beggar. If we think we are this body mind, we are playing beggars. But we don't have to. There is samsara only if we identify with the body mind. From the vantage point of the self, there is only a beautiful display of energies. There is, of course, absolutely nothing wrong with the body mind. On the contrary, it is a beautiful tool of celebration. It is only our exclusive identification with it that makes us feel like beggars.
Yes.
Nice. It's so clear, right?
Yes, it
So
is.
clear. But this is
Mm.
a thing that we break loose from. Initially, we think that we are this, and we're identified as this, and the objects of experience are somehow they are affecting us, and we're in that whole body mind identity until we're not, and that's where liberation occurs. That's where our freedom is realized.
Yes, and usually it happens initially as a glimpse, and then we end up identifying with the body and the mind again. But once we've had that glimpse, then we know in ourselves that we are the king, and so we always have the choice. We see then that we have the choice to stop playing the beggar.
And what the way that occurs is we we no longer identify as the object. We no longer we and we don't try to touch it either. We don't try to manipulate. We don't try to stop doing things. We don't try to do. We come into understanding to be.
Yes, yes, and we see and feel the body and mind as an integral part of the universe. It's part of experience, and all experience is within myself. And it's something that once we have that understanding, as soon as we realize, oh, I was forgetting who I really am, automatically we go back to what we really are.
Yes, yes, yes. I like the way how simply Francis puts that. When people come to him with difficult questions, and he says, well, you know, just the very fact that you were seeing that tells
Exactly. Yes.
what was seeing it,
Yes.
what was aware of it. You're already out of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This next paragraph is very interesting, Jenny. And everyone. The statement is too often the beggar is the starting point. And his answer just was brilliant here. He said the feeling of being a beggar cannot appear without consciousness. No matter how wretched the feeling, consciousness was present before the feeling of being a beggar appeared. It is present during the feeling, and it is present when the feeling vanishes. Therefore, consciousness is the starting point, not the beggar. And this goes right back to don't leave the throne. Stay right there as awareness. Stay right there at present as presence, and that is the starting point. It's where everything rises and falls, and it stays the same.
Yes. Yes. And he said reason alone is not sufficient to stabilize us in this experience. We also need to feel that we are not the body mind. And I think that's really important.
Yes, yes. And on the at the top of page 66, turning the page, uh, he made a statement here that absolutely, I put a note in the parentheses that says, leaves no doubt. A time comes when we no longer need to question the validity of feeling and knowing that we are not the body mind. The time comes we no longer question it. Whenever the image or the thought that we are the body mind appears, we drop it immediately because we know that it is not the truth.
Yes.
It becomes the new default.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it says, whenever we have doubts, we can go back to the understanding that we are the awareness in which all objects, including the body mind, appear. And this is what you were saying reason alone
Yes.
is not sufficient to stabilize us in this experience. We also need to feel that we are not the body mind.
Yes. Shall we do a short meditation on that and see if we can come to that experience, that a feeling experience that we're not the body mind.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Would you lead that?
Okay. Yes. So if we close our eyes and just welcome all experience just as it appears. So maybe there'll be thoughts, maybe bodily sensations, maybe sounds, There will be sounds, be feelings perhaps. Whatever arises is absolutely okay. We're not searching for stillness. We're not wanting to stop things arising. We're just simply welcoming everything that comes up. So just notice the sensation of your weight on the chair. Don't focus on it, just give it light attention. And before I mentioned it, where was that sensation? Where did it come from? It probably wasn't present previously in your experience, so it must have come from somewhere. But don't try to answer that question. In this meditation, we don't need to use the thinking mind. Just notice. Now notice the tingling behind your eyes. It's a very, very subtle sensation. Where did that come from? And where did the sensation of weight go to? Probably went when you were noticing a sensation behind your eyes. So where did it go? So see that both of those sensations appeared and disappeared within awareness, within this vast, empty field that we call awareness. And there are no borders to that, no edges to that. And that's what we really are. We don't appear and disappear like the sensations of the body. That vast, empty field of awareness is always there, ever present, infinite. So is there a feeling of myself at a particular location within this huge empty field? If there is, just notice just where it is, where it's located. And chances are it will be located somewhere in what we call the body. And if so, it will be just another sensation in the body, a very, very subtle sensation, just a very subtle feeling of me, a subtle object, subtle I feeling. But really it's just a sensation like the sensation behind our eyes. It's something we're aware of. We can't be what we're aware of. So I hope that gives some hints as to how we can do that investigation that Francis is talking about, investigation into the body and into that very subtle I feeling.
Yeah, that does. That was really great. It's interesting to watch the many facets that the mind takes on to um, to interfere or to draw attention to something else in that
Yes.
experience. Yeah. There's I don't know if we have any questions. I was going to move to the next page, top of page 67. There's a question or a statement that says this subtle I feeling seems to require no effort to maintain itself. It is a question of resting, waiting, surrendering. And oh my God, Francis just goes zoom right into who is waiting. Who's waiting? I mean, he goes right in, bam, to the thing that he heard. You know, he's like Mr. Radar. Who is waiting? That which is expected to vanish is that which is waiting. As long as there is waiting, how could it vanish? In true surrender, there is nobody surrendering. True surrendering is not an activity. If we decide to surrender, it is an activity. It's in that decision. If we decide to surrender, it is an activity. It is the opposite of surrender. That is why any activity, any doing on the path ultimately doesn't work. So,
Yes, that's so important, and that's really why Francis describes his guided meditations as experiments. Because if we're a scientist doing an experiment, then we need to be open to any possible outcome. It's no good expecting something, because if you expect something, then you'll try and see it, and you'll reject all the observations which don't conform to what you're expecting. And you'd be a really bad scientist if you did that sort of thing. That there are a few who do, unfortunately. um, but that's why he calls it as an experiment, because experiments get in the way of just noticing.
yeah, yeah. There are many comments of appreciation for that meditation, Jenny. Thank you so much for that. That was awesome. Ditto. Many, many being grateful for that. So thank you for that. And to go on this paragraph, it says that is why the activity, okay, so of of doing on the path ultimately doesn't work. So be alert to that. Just be alert to the mind that wants to do, and it's a trick, really, to think that you can have an experience by meditating to it or something of that effect. It says expectation is a subtle rejection of the now. Expectation is a subtle rejection of the now. The ego is a lie based on this rejection. In the now, there is no room for the ego. The ego, this is so good right here, this next sentence. The ego is always in the past or in the future. It vanishes when we come to the now.
Yes, yes.
So that's why those two books were such huge bestsellers. Be Here Now, and what was the other one? Eckhart had one, and Ram Dass had one.
The power of
The
now.
Power
Yes,
of
yes.
Now and Be
Yes,
Here
so,
Now. Right.
yes, exactly. Yes,
Those two books were like they took off.
yes, yeah,
He says we are in fact in the now all the time. We cannot have any perception without it.
yes. Mm.
All perceiving takes place now, in the now. The same applies to thinking and feeling. We have many moments during the day without the troublemaker, the troublemaker, the I thought. However, even when the troublemaker is present, this thinking itself takes place in the now. We are always in our true nature. I mean, I just love the way he just it's so clear in this. In understanding, a natural detachment takes place. You see that? In the understanding, a natural detachment takes place. I've heard
Yes,
Rupert say this many times. It's in the understanding that the mind relaxes.
yes, yes. And we recognize in that moment that ultimately it's never ever been different, that we have always been in our true nature, that we never actually uh, go away from it. We can't ever leave our true nature.
Yeah. And then he says, in understanding, a natural detachment takes place. When we try to understand who we are, what the nature of the universe is, how it appears, and where it exists, our interest is dispassionate. There is no psychological interest, no person with a vested interest.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that he mentions not just understanding what I am, but also understanding what the universe is, because that's really the other side of the equation. And we need to look at both. We understand both.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything.
Yes.
How do I find out who I am? How can I do that? Uh,
Yes, and he talks about discovering what we're not, and specifically that we're not the body or the mind. And then he uses that lovely metaphor of a diamond, and the diamond being covered over by the belief and feeling that we are a body mind. And once that belief and feeling has been discredited, then the diamond is revealed in all its glory. We don't have to do anything to make it shine; it just shines by itself.
and I like the way he sort of describes the experience of the clear power of awareness in this the bottom part of this paragraph on page 67. He says the way to eliminate them, talking about the uh, the uh, the way to eliminate the things that we're not, is to contemplate them in a disinterested way.
Yes,
The power of just contemplating without analyzing, without trying to figure it out, without trying to uh, put a reference to anything, just contemplate it in a very disinterested sort of a way, just like almost like a gaze.
yes, yes,
Yeah. The very act of contemplation distances us from them and reveals the fact that we are not them.
yes, and that's really what he means by meditation, and that's what his guided meditations do. They're always looking at either ourself or the world in that completely disinterested way.
At the top of page 68, he says, we have to discover that we are peace. We are this peace, we are this presence, happiness, fearlessness, that we are eternal. We don't have to do anything to discover it. The diamond, oh, this is so beautiful the way he says
Yes,
this. The diamond shines by itself. This becomes self evident when we surrender the notion that we are a person, a body mind. It is not something that we have to do. Contemplation may seem like a doing to begin with, but in fact, it is the opposite. It is the complete absence of doing, in which all residual doing is revealed layer by layer. I don't know about you, but I just love to drink in those kinds of statements.
Yes, yes. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And the answer, the beginning of the answer to the next question is also really lovely. He says, fall in love with the void, the emptiness of the now, which makes everything possible, which has room for everything. Fall in love with the infinite mirror, with the I am. Everything else, feelings, perceptions, and thoughts, are the packaging, the box.
Yeah, it's just beautiful to contemplate these ideas. The emptiness is the diamond inside, transparent, luminous, rare, priceless, but ever present. Yeah. And this is each of us as I am, as consciousness, as beingness. We are that diamond that's being described here.
Yes, yes.
He says, in the beginning, we are hypnotized by the beauty of the box, by the colors. That's fine. Take time to contemplate the box. Check out the person.
Mhm.
When our eyes get bored, they revert to the diamond. When we look inside the box, we don't see the diamond at first. This is very interesting the way he says this. We see the white satin. At first, we don't see the diamond, we see the white satin, an absence of color, but this is still the box. The diamond is transparent. That is why we fail to see it at first. We see through it to the white satin. Later, we see the diamond.
And that goes back to what we were discussing right at the beginning and to Lindsay's question as well, that you were mentioning we're so attracted by objects that we always quite naturally focus on objects. But what we're doing here is seeing um, when we get getting bored with the objects, just like you get bored with the beat and the rhythm of the music, or you get bored with a mantra or a flame, then you see the diamond itself, and it's the diamond that's important, not the box. The box has no importance whatsoever.
Yes. Yeah, it's the awareness of experience that is important, not the object of experience.
Yes, yes,
Yeah. And then I guess the final little piece on this chapter is the question at the top of page 69, or this half of the chapter, rather.
yes.
Could you say more about contemplation not being an activity? And Francis says, contemplation is our true nature. It is what we are, not what we do. To contemplate means to take our stand in our true nature. Right this minute, sounds, words, sentences, understandings come to us effortlessly. Everything comes to us effortlessly. Consciousness is not something we have the freedom to turn on and off. It is on all the time. We are effortlessly aware. This effortless awareness is contemplation. It is not personal.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yes. And then this next sentence I just loved because I put 3 stars by it. That which sees the person is beyond the person. So just as 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 I'm describing this, just contemplate this for your own self. That which sees the person is beyond the person. That which sees the body, the mind, and the world is not of the nature of the body, the mind, or the world. That which sees all things is not a thing. To treat it as a thing is a lack of respect. To understand that is not a to understand that it is not a thing is to put it back on the shrine. To see it as a thing is the fall. To understand that it is not a thing is the redemption. And then this is typical. You can almost see him get excited when he says this. We are talking about something awesome. We're
Yes.
talking about something awesome, man. Uh, we are saying that whatever it is that is seeing and understanding these words right now is divine consciousness itself. This doesn't mean that I, as a body mind, am understanding these words, and therefore I, as a body mind, am divine consciousness itself. That would be the fall again. Nice. Very, very nice
Yes.
experience in Francis today, everyone. Jenny, do you have any closing words before we sign off for today's time together?
I think just to remember that whenever you feel that very subtle I feeling, to take a step back from that and say, well, what is it that is aware of this I feeling? Or if it's an I thought, what is it that is aware of this I thought? And as you take a step back, that step isn't a step that requires effort. It's a kind of seeking back. It's a release of effort, and it's something we can do at any moment when we notice that we're no longer on the throne.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for that. And I like what Helen Lashni said, for the sage, even blinking is too much.
Yes, that comes from the Ashtavakra Gita.
From what?
So the Ashtavakra Gita. It's an ancient text.
Oh, yes. Yes. I've heard of it.
It's very beautiful.
Yeah. And then Andrea Strock said, silent beauty, beautiful silence. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you all for being with us today. This was a great time to share. Thank you for bringing your presence and your I amness and for sharing it with all of us. It was awesome. Thank you, Jenny, for your beautiful meditation and your wisdom, teaching, and clarity, and all of these things. And I'll see you all next week, next Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern. Have a beautiful week and weekend. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.